Hello. So yeah, obviously that live conked off. I'm so sorry about that. I do not know what happened because my network seems to be fine. I'm just gonna attempt to send this to Anaga maybe to let her know to join. I'll quickly introduce her. Today I'm going to be speaking with Anaga. Some of you already did see me speak with her already. But Anaga is a therapist and a counseling psychologist. She works in Dr. Bhavi Clinic in Nagpur. She is an alumna of Columbia University, Ivy League and all that fancy. And she's also worked in New York for a bit. And super lucky to have her on board to discuss this topic. I am just going to send the live to her and request her to join. Okay, we're doing that. Yeah, so we're going to be discussing mindful masturbation. It's an idea and a concept that has kind of evaded me for a while now. So I am going to explore it with Anaga, who's an amazing person, as you will see and as some of you have already seen. So she's just gonna join us in a second. So I finally got my periods, which means I'm not frazzled by this little glitch. I'm just really apologetic that this happened. I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry.
Wait, so I wasn't sure if it's my internet because it'll always do something funny when I'm in the middle of a live session.
I don't know what happened. It just froze and then it's at the live ended reason. So
yeah, I got the same thing, and then I was trying to DM you and see, is there anything I can do? Can I fix it? But I guess it's fine now.
Yeah.
It's
We're gonna do a bit of a redo, right? So
yes.
I'm gonna ask you the first question again. All of you are getting body dysmorphic disorder again, but basically I was telling you how I don't feel super comfortable with my appearance or super at home in my own body a lot of times. So I was just wondering if in such a situation, mindful masturbation is counterintuitive. What would masturbation even entail? And what could be some benefits of practicing something like this?
Right. So I'll start with a little bit about what mindfulness is and mindful masturbation is, and then I'll get to the body dysmorphic question. I realized I skipped that the first time, so this is a good do-over that we're getting. So just a quick recap. Mindfulness is our ability to be present in the present moment. So to ground ourselves to an anchor very often. It could be our breath, it could be external sounds, it could be certain feelings, certain sensations. So what it does is it gets you more in touch with what's happening within you or with you, as opposed to just carrying on an autopilot, the way we generally do with life. Right. So what I was saying earlier is we often go about our daily activities completely oblivious to what that activity really entails. Brushing our teeth is just one of those things that, you're either planning for the rest of the day or you're thinking about how you slept the night before. Being in the shower, same thing. Eating your food, same thing. And our little phones and devices don't make it any easier because we've got, our thoughts are being pulled in 10 different directions all the time. So mindfulness is a practice which technically just brings you to the present moment and it grounds you in whatever it is that you're doing at that time. So even if you're going for a walk, if you can, just sort of mindfully be present to the sensations, to the sounds, to the feelings, to the, the temperature of the air that's hitting your face, all these little things that you pick up on is a part of mindfulness. So naturally, mindful masturbation is your ability to sort of, or a practice where you're masturbating, but you're orienting all your senses in that moment to what that really feels like, what kind of sensations, thoughts, and feelings it's bringing about for you in that moment. So the whole point of mindful masturbation really is to heighten the pleasure, heighten awareness, get you more in tune with the specific pleasures that your body can experience, as opposed to just going on it with this default goal of achieving orgasm, which is generally what we do, whether it's sex with a partner or sex or masturbation. Now, to come to your question of, if you have body dysmorphic disorder and if you've had this kind of...
The best body image, right? I think a lot of people...
Right.
With the lockdown and a lot of us putting on weight and like so much fat phobia that you see on social media. It's tougher, and it is a challenge. And as much as I hear
Absolutely.
the benefits, I was wondering how we would navigate something like that.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's really interesting that you bring this question up, because very often when I'm talking about mindfulness, the number one question that comes when I talk about acceptance of what is going on is, how can you detach the judgment that comes with something and just accept it? That is the biggest challenge. And, even, with our bodies or with certain anxious thoughts, we're conditioned to sort of dislike them. We're conditioned to call them bad. So really, how do you then mindfully practice something that is so intimate? But the whole premise of mindfulness is to non-judgmentally accept whatever is coming up for you, right? So it's not about this like toxic positivity of saying, I love my body, when you don't. It's about saying, I accept my body for what it is right now. I see it the way it is, and it's fine. You may not have to attach, values like I love it or it's great or I'm falling in love with it, because that's, it's not coming intrinsically. So you don't have to force yourself to say those things, but you can definitely just learn to accept it the way it is. And that's another huge part of mindfulness, is to non-judgmentally, accept it.
I love it. It's almost like just witnessing what's happening.
Exactly.
And spectators. So like this is one opportunity to exercise that.
Absolutely.
That's lovely. That's very motivating. And it's such a fresh perspective on mindfulness, which otherwise has a bad rep because of this almost like cult-like bearing that some people who practice it kind of preach. Second question to you is then, well, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and which means that many of us are stuck at home, and we're also like overworked and underpaid, might I say, but which just means like of time, lack of privacy. How do you in such a situation teach yourself to mindfully masturbate?
Right. So that's a really valid question. I think, considering especially maybe people living in Bombay or like bigger cities who already have to live in cramped spaces could like testify to that, right? It's really hard sometimes, especially if you have a roommate or if you're living with family and you're sharing a room with somebody, to get that privacy. So mindful masturbation, and as I was saying earlier, the little sort of step-by-step process of doing it does talk about how you don't necessarily need like a sprawling bedroom with silk sheets and like the perfect room temperature and sexy lighting to get you in the mood. It is something that if you just intend to do, it could take you 3 minutes in the shower, 5 minutes in the shower. Whatever you can afford is good enough. What matters really more is the intention to practice it. And so I would say the first step is set that intention. And what that could look like could simply be statements like, I'm going to allow my body to experience whatever comes up for it. Or I'm going to allow my body to experience the pleasures of these physical sensations while being goal-less, because that's the whole point, again, not to rush to orgasm. And so if we think of masturbation as only to achieve some kind of a peak or climax, then the question of time and space is important, right? Because some people may take 10 minutes, some people 15, some may not orgasm. But if you're just focusing on the act of pleasuring yourself and exploring different aspects of that activity, then you don't really need a timeline. You don't really need like a specific space or time. So that's number one, is to set the intention. The second is to, if you do have the luxury of time and space, a lot of these studies interestingly say that you should set a timer for 15-20 minutes, just like for practical purposes, because if you can get so sort of lost in that you want to bring yourself back to whatever other obligations you may have. Then, of course, creating a space. If you have a bedroom to yourself, then you're very lucky, very privileged. But if you don't, if you're living with a partner and you have that kind of a relationship with your partner, maybe excusing yourself and letting them know that those 15 minutes you sort of need for yourself in the bedroom. And I think what is also important is to commit to this practice. So not making it like a one-time thing. right? Like any other mindful practice, this is something that has a cumulative effect. This is something that the longer you practice, the more you will sort of see the benefits in the long term. So maybe even, some people would say, I'm going to do it 3 times this week for 20 minutes each time, or something like that. It's almost like training yourself to not get better at it, but just to become more familiar with it. And the next one, which is the crux of this whole thing, is to really do something that is not the norm for you. So if you're somebody who uses a vibrator, try using your hand. If you're somebody who uses your right hand, use your left hand. If you're somebody who does it lying down, do it standing up. So try all these sort of different combinations, different positions, different objects even, or try wearing sexy lingerie, if that's something that you're not used to. And it's like when we talk about basic mindfulness practices also, a very standard practice is to say if you're a right-handed person and you're trying to become familiar with mindfulness, use your left hand for brushing your teeth. Because what happens is you're automatically paying more attention when it's a little forced, because it's not so, fluid anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the basic, that's the crux of this practice. And then, like I said, savoring the practice is super important, not to make it goal oriented that I'm getting better at masturbating or I'm getting better at, even having sex with my partner. But it is genuinely to just allow your body to expose yourself to all the different emotions, feelings, and sensations that come with it. And most importantly, to be compassionate with yourself as you're doing this, because, you will notice that you're getting like distracting thoughts, perhaps, which is what happens with mindfulness all the time. And another thing that people think is, when I'm practicing mindfulness, I should be in a thoughtless state. I hear this very often, but that's not possible. We're not robots, we're human beings. So of course, we're going to have thoughts running through our mind all the time. Yeah. So just like that, the minute you notice that I'm getting distracted, get yourself gently and non-judgmentally back to the practice and to the physical sensations that are coming up for you. So all in all, like this is how I would kind of describe the practice to take place from start to finish.
Oh gosh, that seems quite easy when you break it down like that. And also, I love the idea of like being compassionate with yourself, because I think maybe that's where some of my own bitterness towards the practice also comes from, in maybe just my inability to maintain that kind of mindfulness and being aware and present in the moment. So also like setting the timer is such a good tip, because then that kind of pressure off me. It's minutes that I've got to engage myself with like this, and that somehow makes it seem a lot. Yeah, then I'm like, I have like the whole day to figure out, and I must like achieve the end of the day. No, I love it. This is easy and doable, which is how like most things seem on your page as well. Like all the
Thank you.
Down. I especially enjoyed the friendship bingo that you made recently.
Thank you.
And you spoke about like, and I obviously like sent it to a bunch of my friends, and you talk about like be like a supportive friend and a partner like that. So thank you so much for doing this live with me. And also thank you so much for the content that you made. Do you have any final words of wisdom for our lovely audiences?
I think, some of the things that I may have repeated a few times, but I don't think there's enough number of times that I can stress on this. And like I said, a lot of our audience members may already be aware and sensitive to the fact that masturbation is an absolutely healthy practice. It's absolutely, the stigma and the taboo that it carries with it very often comes from misinformation, comes from these cultural ideas of like women masturbating is unnatural and stuff like that. That's not the case. It is an absolutely healthy and natural practice. So why I sort of choose to end on this note is because I think before we got cut off, I was talking about how that shame and guilt of masturbation can really interfere with fully experiencing the pleasure that you can. And another fact here that I would love to add is that masturbation does also help you in partnered sex, right? Naturally, because when you work on yourself and you're in any kind of a relationship, it is going to affect the other person and the two of you together as well. So it's got so many benefits, and I could really keep talking on this, but in the interest of time, I'll keep quiet.
So
Yeah.
So this is great. I hope we can do like more great work together in the future.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun. Bye.